Dan Wynn here. I was watching TV the other day, and one of my favorite shows is The Prophet. And if you haven't seen the show before, it's about this millionaire named Marcus Lemonis, and I think he's the CEO of Camping World. But what he also does in the show is invest in these small and medium-sized businesses that are struggling and helping them to turn them around. And so this particular episode was about a bagel shop called New York City Bagels. And Marcus wanted to make an investment into this store and roll it out nationwide. But one of the things that he talked about was the name and how he wanted to change the name. And I remember what he said. He said, this name is too generic, right? The owner wanted to keep the name so bad, but Marcus said, if they really want to get to the next level, they're going to have to change the name. And so this kind of brought me back to how business and marketing intersects with trademark law, right? Because generic names aren't very strong. And so today I want to share with you 5 things that every entrepreneur needs to know about picking a name for their product, service, or business. And so let's start with the first one, generic, right? So generic names and words aren't really protectable. The reason is that the government does not want for anyone to have a particular monopoly on these names, like pizza, soda, car. These are very generic, and the government deems that they are not protectable, are not very strong, and therefore not registerable. So stay away from generic names. If you must include them in your mark or your trademark, then these names will have to be disclaimed, which means that you can't claim any right to them. You can claim rights to other parts of the name, but not for these particular generic marks. The other, it's a little bit stronger, but still not very good, are descriptive marks. And these marks describe the quality or maybe the ingredients of maybe the product or service. So like sweets for candy, in connection with candy, that is a descriptive mark. And so this might have to be disclaimed, or the whole mark might be deemed descriptive, and the government may issue what's called a refusal for descriptiveness. So there is some things around it, like getting on the supplemental register, but in most cases, if you can, stay away from descriptive marks. They're not really strong. Just a little bit better are what's called suggestive marks. And these things are names and marks that require the consumer to make maybe a mental leap of thought, one more step into connecting the words of that mark to the product or service. So one example is Microsoft, right? If you had never heard of Microsoft before, then you wouldn't know what Microsoft really meant. But through their branding and their marketing and things like that, you know that obviously they do computers, they do software, they do hardware. So suggestive marks are kind of in the middle. They're not very strong compared to the next two I'm going to talk about. I wouldn't go any lower than suggestive marks, but if you can stay away from suggestive marks in your name when deciding a name for your product or service or company, stay away from them. Fourth one are arbitrary. Arbitrary marks are words that exist in real life. You can find them in the dictionary, but they have no connection to the product or service that is related to the name. So one example is Apple. Right? Apple, the fruit, and then Apple, they sell computers and software and things like that, and iPhones and music. So there's no connection between the fruit and the products and services they sell, other than after a certain amount of time, people have associated with them together. So arbitrary marks are fantastic. I would suggest if you can stay above this, these are great. These are strong marks, and really can get past the trademark office examining attorney denying it on distinctiveness. And the fifth one is fanciful. Fanciful marks are words that are made up, that they don't exist in a dictionary, and have a connection to your product service. So these are the best types of marks. These are the strongest types of marks, right? Names like Xerox. I think Kodak is a generic. No, sorry, is a fanciful mark. It does not exist in real life. You know, you want these types of names because these represent the strongest types of marks. Um, so please, when you're deciding a name for a product or service or your company, think about how strong it is in relation to the trademark distinctiveness, this trademark strength, and if you can, get an arbitrary or fanciful name, and that'll get you through the registration process, the examining attorney, whether it's distinctive or not. Still got to go through the search if there's any other confusingly similar marks, but you're going to be ahead of the game here if you can get an arbitrary or fanciful mark. So, hey, this is Dan Wynn. I hope this has been helpful. So go ahead and have a great day.